there and welcome to this video. This is the first video on a series I'm recording, planning, doing on how to shoot manual. And in this video I'm talking about the aperture, the ISO and the shutter speed. First of all, before I start with all the settings and everything, I just wanted to say that it doesn't matter if you have a camera, a phone, or which technique you use, which gear you have. For me, it's just all about having fun. So if you don't have a camera, if you don't shoot manual, it doesn't matter, just have fun. If you shoot in the automatic mode, or if you have a phone, use that one. It's great, just have fun and don't let such stupid things like gear or techniques hinder you to have fun. So yeah, I just wanted to say that right away, since in this video I'm talking about technique, you could say, and shooting manual. So if you don't shoot manual, you can have so much fun as well. You can get great photos, and I've done that. I shoot manual, I shoot in the automatic mode or with my phone, and I shoot manual as well. So it doesn't matter how you take pictures. In my opinion, it matters that you are enjoying it. Alright, that was the first thing I just wanted to let you know. So now let's start with the topic of the video itself. What does it mean to shoot manual? When you shoot manual, you basically just set the settings in your camera yourself. And that can be very handy, since the automatic mode, it's a very good mode. The camera does a great job, but it's not 100%. Not every pic is, or every shot gets the way you want to have it. At least that's what I experienced. And when I have visualized a photo in my head and I press the shutter or the button, I don't know how you say it, and it doesn't turn out the way I want to have it, I'm pretty frustrated or disappointed. And shooting manual, then I can set the settings myself, and so I get the shot the way I want to have it. And that's why you shoot manual, or you do it because you like to do it, or whatever. Yes, so when we want to shoot manual, the first thing we need to do is pick up our camera, and on the right side of the viewfinder there is a dial mode, and just set the dial mode to M. M stands for manual. So now let's start with the fun part. The first setting I'm talking to you about is the aperture. The aperture is the hole in your lens. So through the aperture, the light gets in and all the information and go to the camera, and the photo gets done. Basically, very easy. And you can have this aperture changing sizes. You have like a value, and you can scroll the wheels or turn around buttons, change the value on the camera and make it bigger or make it smaller. And there is something that is a bit confusing about these values, which are written with F numbers before, but I'll try to make it very easy and clear for you, don't worry. So when you have a big aperture, then you have a small F number. It's just the opposite, a big aperture, a small F number. And on the other side, when you have a small aperture, then you have a big F number. So a big F number for a small aperture would be maybe f11, f16 or f22. And for a big aperture, so you remember, there are small F numbers, The small f numbers can be like f1.4, f2 or f4 for example. And there are two things you can make artistically with the aperture. On one side with the wide aperture you can make a portrait look. I love it. So you have something, a subject in the foreground that is in focus and everything behind is blurred out. It's also very handy when your background isn't nice. So you can't see all the details of the background you don't like. And when you want to do that portrait look, just a little tip, you just look at the distance of your camera and your subject. And look that this distance is smaller than the distance from the subject to the background. Because when the subject is closer to the background, if this is the subject, here's the background, and your camera is over there, then you'll have such a small difference in sharpness or sharpness is the right word, from the subject and the background, that you won't have that great effect from the portrait look. So just look that the camera is pretty close to the subject and the background is far away. So camera, subject, background, for example. And then the background gets blurred out. Alright, and one last thing about the big aperture is, since there is more space with a bigger hole, more light gets through to the center of your camera. So your image gets brighter when you make the aperture bigger. And on the other side, when you make the aperture smaller, then your image gets darker and everything gets sharp or sharper than in the portrait looks. So when you have a subject and a background with a small aperture, you can see also in the background what's happening, and with a big aperture it's just all melted away. Alright, so let's move on to the next setting, the shutter speed. The shutter speed is just the amount of time your shutter is open to take the picture. Right, and you have, you can have a fast shutter speed or a slow shutter speed. With a fast shutter speed, you can freeze things. For example, water, then you can see all the water drops. Or when you do a jumping shot, then you are freezed in the middle of the air. And with a fast shutter speed, there is just a very short amount of time, because the shutter is like open close, so that you can freeze things. So in this short amount of time, not a lot of light can get in. So with a fast shutter speed, the image gets darker. That's it about the fast shutter speed. With the slow shutter speed, the shutter is open for a much longer time, and so much more light can get in, and with a slow shutter speed you can brighten the image up, and with that you can show motion blur if you want to. For example, with water you can show the flow of the water. I took a photo of I still don't know how to say it, in the shower. You have like this handle where the water comes out. You can put over your head and all to shower yourself. I made a photo of it. You can see it now, the comparison of one with the water flowing with a slow shutter speed, and the other with a fast shutter speed where the water drops are frozen. One thing about the slow shutter speed is that you can get camera shake when it's too slow. And there's a hand-holding rule to avoid camera shake, and for this one you need to know what the focal length is. So there are so many different lenses in this world. And you might have already heard that you can have a 50mm lens or a 200mm lens or a 70 to 200 or 18 to 55. There are so many variations. And this numbers, 50mm, 100mm, 200mm, this is the focal length. So keep that in mind. And to avoid the camera shake, there's this rule, you need to look that your focal length equals the shutter speed. So if I'm using my 200mm lens, then I need to look that I have a shutter of 1/200. And then I'm fine. I can go higher. Higher is always good because then you start to freeze things, so you're fine. Just not slower, because then you'll probably get camera shake. On the other side, maybe you want to have a very slow shutter speed, and then you can use a tripod, but you don't need a tripod. If you don't have one, I remember myself when I started that I didn't use one. Just look around. Is there a small garden wall or a fence, or, for example, my boyfriend helped me out a lot. I could put my camera on his shoulder, and then we just pressed the shutter and we just both stood very, very still, and it worked. It was great. And yeah, so you can make so many great photos with just trying, instead of thinking, oh, well, I don't have a tripod. You will be surprised how many things you can make. Of course, you can't make everything, but you can make so much more that you'll think it at the first place. Alright, let's move on to the last setting. That's the ISO. So imagine you set your aperture and your shutter speed, and your image is just still too dark. And that's pretty disappointing or frustrating, but then you can use the ISO. That's just like an extra light booster, and it's fantastic. What happens then is that the light sensitivity of your camera changes, and so your image gets brighter. There's just one downside of the ISO, or something you want to look out, is that when you go too high with the ISO value, the image gets noisy and grainy. And I tried it out here with my camera and took, like, from same frame, shot, whatever, photos with different ISO values, so that you can see how the grain starts to come in the photo. Every camera is different, and it depends on which camera do you have, and it depends also on what you like. Where is your limit? Until which grain level in your image are you still happy with your photos, still happy with the memory you got, which is, it's fantastic to have a memory in photos and pictures. I love that. And at which point you sit in front of this photo and are like, oh wow, that's garbage. One other recommendation is, just when you take pictures and set the values, just always set the ISO at the minimum you need. So this way you'll avoid grain that wouldn't be necessary. Thank you very much for watching, and I enjoyed it a lot. I had a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it a little bit as well, or maybe a lot, I don't know. Leave me a comment below if you'd like it, and you can subscribe if you'd like to. More content is following me soon. Yeah, that's it. And yeah, if you have questions or something, just write me in the comments and I'll answer them. Right. That's it. Bye!